The representation of gifted in the media and the negative perceptions and implications. This paper is talking about the gifted people and how they are represented in the media. Research on gifted or highly talented people reveals that giftedness is often viewed favorably by society. However, media narratives portray the gifted as marginalized at the extremes of society who behave erratically, disobey social norms, or fail to socialize enough and build positive relationships even with their closest relatives. The way gifted people are portrayed in the media is a topic worth searching, even if it's not specifically stated which talent or skill is deemed superior to the widely held beliefs of other people. The depictions of the gifted often take the spotlight through their positioning in such media narratives, while the rest of the audience feels themselves in entertainment and leisure time activities in front of the media. Thus, media representations of the gifted can draw attention to such uncommon, unique individuals, yet this may ultimately lead to misconceptions. Although the media partly presents giftedness as an innate quality beyond the individual's control, it often portrays gifted individuals as angry, irritable, maladjusted, unstable, or withdrawn and uncommunicative, highlighting preconceived notions about them. This study examines the educational stages of representations of gifted individuals in films, questioning the concepts of success and failure and how they are generally associated with gifted children. It also questions whether the narratives objectively assess the actions and deeds of gifted children in relation to a sense of guilt or competence. If the focus is on educational stages, issues such as teachers, school administrators, peer pressure, or classroom struggles might be highlighted. However, generally in media narratives, the focus is not on the social, economic, physical, or and emotional conditions of the gifted, but rather on their positioning as right or wrong within a social context. Consequently, the emphasis placed on the quality of representation in media narratives generally suppress the concept of individual uniqueness. The topic is discussed in terms of giftedness and how it is closely related to media representation. In this respect, how it causes the violations of children's rights, his or her perception, and usually causing the othering factors to occur. A gifted person in general is someone who possesses extraordinary abilities, intelligence, or creative talent that far exceeds the average standard for their age. While clinical psychology defines giftedness using specific IQ thresholds, typically a score of 130 or higher, a broader definition extends well beyond standardized testing. There are an estimated 166 million to 830 million gifted people in the world, depending on which definition of giftedness is used, because giftedness is a statistical designation rather than a fixed medical condition. The total number changes based on the percentage cutoff that experts apply to the global population. Based on a world population of approximately 8.3 billion, the breakdown across different standards definitions reveals distinct tiers of giftedness. When we look at them, we classify the people as highly gifted, exceptionally gifted, or profoundly gifted. And altogether, they are within the top 2% of the whole population. There are some key factors that complicate the account. One of them is the lack of universal definition, uneven identification, or domain-specific giftedness. The key dimensions of giftedness might include some cognitive ability, some creative and artistic talent, synchronous development, or high intensity. There are several other points to be discussed within the concept of giftedness, including the teacher training, for example, or teacher qualification, or material preparation, or characteristics of gifted individuals, etc. But we don't have enough time to discuss them all, but you can have a look at the paper later on. Apart from the technical details, it's important to see how giftedness is portrayed in media. In mainstream media, giftedness is overwhelmingly portrayed through extreme, highly sensationalized tropes that prioritize plot progression over psychological accuracy. Rather than reflecting the nuanced reality of high cognitive ability, television and film frequently rely on specific archetypes that lean on the disharmony hypothesis, that cultural assumption that immense intelligence must come at a step psychological or social cost. Media representations general filter giftedness through the following dominant patterns. One of them is the mad genius and the high functioning sociopath characters who are frequently shown possessing near magical analytical skills paired with extreme social detachment, arrogance, or mental instability. The trope is another one. Extreme intelligence is balanced by a total lack of empathy or emotional regulation. And there are some distortion examples as well. The social misfit or comic relief nerd is another option. The trope, severe social inaptitude and obsessive compulsive tendencies are played for laughs. Examples Sheldon Cooper in The Big Bang Theory. The distortion is that it conflates intellectual giftedness strictly with neurodevelopmental disorders like autism spectrum disorder, obscuring the fact that while twice exceptional individuals exist, they do not represent all gifted people. There is also the single domain visual prodigy. Media struggle to portray abstract meta thinking or conceptual reasoning. Instead, writers lean on highly visual, easily filmable indicators of genius, and the character calculates complex physics equations mid-air, memorizes a phone book in seconds, or plays a perfect piano concerto after one lesson. The scorpion or will hunting in Good Will Hunting could be cited as the examples. Regarding the distortions, writers use luck, fast pacing, and impossible omniscience as shortcuts for actual intelligence. This leaves everyday gifted individuals who may excel in leadership, creativity, or unstructured critical thinking feeling unrecognized. There are some gender dichotomies as well, and there are some rare grounded interpretations. Films like Gifted 2017 or Judy Foster's Little Man Tate 1991 focus on the tug of war between nurturing and exceptional um, mind and providing a stable, emotionally healthy childhood. These stories accurately explore how isolation stems not from a lack of social desire, but from a mismatch in developmental pacing with age peers. In the film, for example, My Father's Violin, 2022, young Özlem, having lost her father, is forced to move in with her uncle, a renowned violin virtuoso. Their shared passion for music gradually brings them closer, and they accept each other at the end. Another film called Gifted by 2017 depicts the struggle between a gifted child and his uncle and a grandmother. The uncle, also a genius, believes that child should live his childhood rather than constantly be under competition and strict discipline, and tries to rescue him from the grandmother's established order. Maybe Baby One and two different films focus on two families battling for custody of two children born through IVF whose parents are mixed up. One child appears to be gifted, the other a slow learner, but the families are unwilling to give up the children they have adopted to a certain age and begin living close together. However, this will bring about significant problems as well. which is the best for the child. This is discussed throughout the film. A child whose mother is a musician has a father who wants to prevent him from playing the violin until the school gathering day. Then the child discovers the truth. Enola Holmes in 2020 emphasizes that Sherlock Holmes' sister and mother are also very intelligent, so they are also gifted people. In general, how giftedness is portrayed in Turkish cinema films provide a bunch of characters. For example, the lone genius or eccentric scientist, such rarely portrayed Hollywood lens is not seen in Turkish films. Instead, the portrayal of highly gifted or prodigiously talented individuals is deeply intertwined with social realism, familial collectivism, and cultural alienation. The child is a family savior, for example, during the golden age of Yeşilçam cinema, giftedness in children was not framed around high IQ or institutional tests. Instead, it was depicted as a kind of an extraordinary emotional and practical intelligence that could bring the mom and dad together again. The heroic persona, for example, in melodramas featuring iconic child actors such as Sezercik series, portrayed children with adult-like with wisdom and survival skills. The narrative goal was rather than pursuing scientific or academic prestige, like the child's gift was systematically deployed to reunite a broken nuclear family or save parents from financial or uh, moral ruins. So the alienated intellectual figure in modern independent Turkish cinema, spearheaded by directors like Nuri Bilge Ceylan, giftedness is treated as a kind of an existential burden than a blessing. In the Ahlat Ağacı, the wild pear tree, for example, the intellectual or creative gifts of the protagonist lead to profound social alienation. The cultural mismatch, the narrative highlights the painful friction between a highly articulate visionary mind and the rigid, stagnant, provincial environmental of rural Turkey. The giftedness here is synonymous with loneliness, unfulfilled potential, and a failure to adapt to society's traditional structures, clashing worlds of genius and conformity with the recent contemporary films explicitly tackle cognitive giftedness by focusing on the friction between the brilliant mind and the societal or systemic conformity. Sen hiç ateş böceği gördün mü? Have you ever seen Fireflies? This film follows Gülseren, a girl born with an extraordinary photographic memory and mathematical intellect. A societal critic, the story portrays her giftedness as something the education system and her family continuously try to tame or normalize. Her intelligence makes her an outcast, tracing a 50-year history of Turkey where political and social shifts demand conformity over individual genius. Deli Deli Olma, Piano Girl, set her mood village in Cars. This film also explores raw innate musical giftedness. It juxtaposes a young girl's natural talent against the lack of local infrastructure, showing that talent requires an elder mentor or an old piano teacher, for example, to bridge the gap between isolation and realization. When we have a look at the key terms of giftedness in Turkish films, we see that sacrifice of childhood or lack of institutional support. And usually, the gifted character is rarely defined by an official IQ test score. Instead, they are recognized by the rebel thinker, the unseen visionary, or someone having some unique qualities such as music, sports, fight, or other things. Like Harry Potter is introduced as a gifted person. Thank you for listening.